Welcome everybody to the LiveTime webinar. We want to thank everybody for being on this morning. We have a lot of people watching this, and we're really excited to be able to show, hopefully here in the next less than an hour, some of the features or what LiveTime is in the first place and how you use LiveTime. One thing that's worth mentioning, in Fuse, which is what we're using to do this webinar, there's a chat feature that's located at the bottom right-hand corner. To where you can use the chat features if you have any questions, whatever you can answer, and then we can answer those questions. What is LiveTime? What are we talking about when we mention LiveTime? Well, this is kind of the agenda, if you will, for our presentation today. We'll give you a quick little overview of what LiveTime is, and then we'll talk about, I guess, 4 different semesters or 4 different chapters, 101, 201, 301, and 401, of how you use the actual application. So we're going to cover almost everything about the app in this session, and it's going to get a little bit more advanced as time goes on. So if you like what you see today, please feel free to follow us on social media platforms, as you can see here. And if you have any questions or inquiries, you can email us at info@livetimeapp.com. We also have our flyer available as well on livetimeapp.com/press, to which you can access that there. So that's great. So let's go ahead and begin. First of all, to introduce everybody in this room here, my name is Matt Timmons. I am the product designer and lead developer on LiveTime, and I'll be kind of hosting us here this morning. We've got Luke DeMoss also in the room, and he handles all of our support as well as some QA. And then also Mrs. Brittany Wilcox. And Brittany uses actually LiveTime every single weekend here at Fellowship Church. So she'll be on the line here in just a bit. And she also handles support inquiries as well. So that's who's in the room today. And let's go. So where did LiveTime come from? Well, Fellowship Church, about, I want to say, maybe 7 years ago, under Pastor Ed Young, wanted to start doing multi-site campuses. So we started all these multi-site campuses and actually streamed live to these campuses. And the message was the live part. So the music part was all done locally at each campus. But when we got to the message, everybody would take a live stream from our central location in Grapevine, Texas, for the actual message portion. So we had to create a way to help time all this to happen. We know people have used stopwatches before, but that just felt very cumbersome. So we decided, okay, we used like basically a VNC windows into different old Windows XP computers with some very cumbersome timers and text fields, and the whole thing was absolutely crazy. We decided that we needed to actually come up with a legit solution to help us accomplish this. And so as we started building LiveTime, an entity called Creative Pro Media began. We launched Creative Pro Media at our annual C3 conference not that long ago. And Creative Pro Media is an extension of Creative Pastors. Creative Pastors and CreativeProMedia.com are kind of one and the same. And Creative Pro Media will be hopefully launching very, very soon. It's a great resource tool for your church. It's going to have some music elements, some design print elements, as well as film and video elements that you guys can use. But there's also a chapter of Creative Pro Media that we have called Apps and Technology. And that is what we're talking about today. Is the first tool that we have in Apps and Technology is called LiveTime. So we created what became the LiveTime family of products, and we believe it really became the best way to keep track of time throughout your live events. On the screen in front of you now, you see a couple different things. You see LiveTime on OS X running, and also LiveTime Viewer running on the iPad and the iPhone from iOS. And here soon, we will also have, in lieu of some announcements recently, the LiveTime Viewer app will actually extend onto the Apple Watch. So we're really, really excited about that. Development on that just wrapped up recently. So now, what can LiveTime be used for? We actually discovered that LiveTime is not just for syncing of a live service, but it can be used for a lot of different things. For instance, you can use it to sync. So let's say you have, one central location, let's say here in Dallas-Fort Worth, and a bunch of other locations all around the U.S., and you want all of them to see the same countdown timer, just like what we do. So yeah, you can use LiveTime for that. Now, we also discovered that LiveTime can be used for just simple live television. For instance, look at this screenshot from the Grammy Awards not that long ago. If you zoom in on their clock, it is just hideous. It needs some serious work. What if it looked like this? Here's a picture of LiveTime running in our audio room at Fellowship Church in Grapevine, and it's over in the right-hand corner. It looks fantastic. You can also use it as a stage prompter, if you will. So you see their LiveTime's running in the upper right-hand corner. It allows your stage, whether you're doing a corporate event, any kind of event really, to where you need to see like times of videos, how long it is until something starts or stops. It's a great tool for that. You can also use it backstage to just simply monitor how long things are. Again, just keeping times in sync. There's some shots from backstage. And as well as that front of house, we use it again so the front of house people can see. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the iOS application running on an iPhone to where our speakers can look and see how long it is they have exactly until they come up, or an estimation they have, until they can come up. So that's kind of an overview of LiveTime and different ways that it can be used. LiveTime is actually a couple different pieces. So its main application is separated into what we have the output. The output is just a window that can be full screened on your computer, and the window can then be full screen on a computer. You can hook up a scan converter or an MXO and put it into SDI or something like that if you wanted to make it an actual display that you can see across your facility. And there's also a control panel that controls the actual output. So you don't actually put a mouse move or a keyboard entry on the output. You do everything from the control panel, and the control panel controls what happens on the actual output. So it's pretty cool. The base app of LiveTime is $4.99 on the Mac App Store. And when you get that, it allows you to connect to an existing clock server to watch and control it. Well, wait a minute. What's an existing clock server? Well, to enable the actual output screen and the broadcast functions of the application, you need to do that with an in-app purchase that we call the clock server. And when you do that, you get this. So your broadcast output becomes available, and you can connect other devices to it. So by default, if you just want to connect to an existing clock server, you just download the base application and connect. But if you actually want to turn on the server and become a broadcast location, you can then, as you can see in the chart, turn on your server, and then everybody else can connect to you. And again, that server is available with an in-app purchase. So we're actually going to walk you through what that does right now through a demo. So here is my computer screen here. So we're going to launch LiveTime for the very first time. So LiveTime is launching, and here it is. Just recently downloaded on the Mac App Store. We can go into Preferences, and we're going to actually turn on our server. Now, turning on the server does require an in-app purchase. So I've already purchased it, so I can just press Restore and enter in our password. And let's see if I get it right. Yeah, I got it right. So it restores our in-app purchase that we used already, and then I can restore it, and our server is turned on. One thing that's really cool about turning on your server is that it actually disables all the sleep functions of your computer. So your display won't go to sleep, your computer will not go to sleep. It actually makes PowerNap deactivate on the LiveTime application so that everything stays up and running while you're using LiveTime as a server. You can give the actual server a name, to which you'll see how that's used soon. So I'm going to call this one MasterTime and press Update, and now this server is called MasterTime. And you can also make it to where you can open the control panel automatically on launching the program, or even open the clock output automatically on launching the program. I'm going to show you how to use some of those here in just a minute. So that is kind of basically how you set up the server on LiveTime. So now, if I go back to the home screen and click Open Clock Output, it opens the actual default output window to where everything is set up for us. So you can take this window and size it and move it around, or you can even make it full screen like this, to which if I go back to my preferences, so go back to LiveTime Preferences and say Open Clock Output on Watch, watch what happens. If I quit the program here, so now I'm quitting LiveTime, and now I'm going to open LiveTime back up, LiveTime will actually automatically start with the output in full screen just where you left off. So it's a really great tool to be automated if you want to just reboot the computer that the server is running on. It works really, really, really well for that. I'm going to just go ahead and turn that function off for now. So that's kind of how you set up LiveTime and how you use it. On the home screen, you have the ability to open your control panel, and this is where you access your control panel. You can also open the output straight from here if you'd like, with the little pop-out button down by the clock preview. So that's kind of how you use just set up the LiveTime to be a server. But now we're going to move into our first chapter we call LiveTime 101, which is up and going, and kind of how you actually use the main interface in LiveTime and what each thing does. And to do that, I'm going to welcome to the driver's seat Mrs. Brittany Wilcox, the person who runs it every single weekend for us here at Grapevine. She was integral in the design process. Ladies and gentlemen, Brittany.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. What I'm going to walk through right now is our control panel. That is pretty much the heart of the application, how you run your clock. So I'm going to talk with you about the different sections and then give you a brief demo on how to run the actual control panel and how to operate your clock. There are many different sections of our control panel, as you can see. There are two separate timers. We have an aux timer and a main timer. We have a text overlay section where we have 5 different positions to display quick text information. We have status and information section. That is where you can put the name or title of your program or service. We have our connection details section. Later on, I believe someone else is going to be talking about that later in this discussion, so we're not going to dive into that right now. And then we have a preview, so you can see exactly what your clock is outputting as you're pushing the buttons. You can see what everybody else is seeing. So right now, I'm going to give you all a quick demo on how to use those different features. I'm going to breeze through them as fast as I can. The first thing we're going to start with is our timers. As I said, we have 2 separate timers. We have the aux timer, which is this white one here, displays right here. We have the main timer, which is the red one, and it displays right here. They are 2 separate functioning timers, as in you don't connect them, you run them separately, but they do work the exact same way. The first thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to really just show you the main timer. I'm going to firstly show you the timer input, which is this section right here. This is where you would put in the time that you want to be rolling on your clock. It is a very smart timer input. And by that I mean you don't have to necessarily put in a colon, or you can if you want. It is smart in that if you enter numbers, it knows exactly when to go with seconds, minutes to hours based on how many you put in. So for example, if I put in only 1 or 2 numbers, it's going to register as seconds. So if I type a 10 here, I'm going to click in it, and I'm going to type 10, that would register as seconds. If I do 3 to 4 numbers, that's going to register as minutes. So I type another 10, now I have 10 minutes and 10 seconds. And 5 to 6 numbers registers as hours. So I type another 10, now I have 10 hours, 10 minutes, and 10 seconds that I can set on my clock. So like I said, I didn't have to enter colons. It is smart enough to do that. Another great thing about how smart it is it does some math for you. So if you type 90, and I click and I can hit enter just to show you what it looks like, it did the math for you to know it was 1 minute and 30 seconds. To go ahead and set your time and get it started and learn those features, the first thing to know is the set button over here. That is literally where you can set your time to get it rolling. You could do that while it's stopped or started. Either way will continue functioning as you already had the clock set. It will just jump to that time. The next thing to know is the stop and start buttons. That is simply how you start the timer. Right now I am going to go ahead and start it. I have a green box letting me know that it is rolling, and it currently is rolling down. And the button obviously changed to stop, so you can stop and start with the same button. Like I said, I'm rolling down, but if you want it to roll up, you do have the option of up or down arrows that you can change as you're going through it. It can be rolling or stop to do that. Then the next thing to know when you notice those arrows is when I'm on the up, this bounce feature goes away. When I click the down arrow, I have a little check box that says bounce. And what that is when I have this selected, it's going to do something for us. I'm going to show you real fast. I'm going to set my clock to 10 seconds, counting down. And when I check the bounce feature, what it should do is at 0 on the clock, it is automatically going to start counting back up. It's going to transition its arrow. And so there it goes. At 0, it goes back to counting up, and it started doing that for me automatically. I didn't have to hit anything. That's what that feature is. The next thing to know is our show and hide. Currently, I am showing the clock because you can see it. We have the option to hide the clock if you'd like to. it simply grays it out up here, and it just disappears off of your clock output. And again, it's the same button, just like with stop and start, same button to show or hide. Those are nice things that we do regularly, and you can do it when it's rolling or stopped, either way. Another great feature about the clock is if you don't necessarily want to set a certain time, but you want everyone to know what time of day it is, you have this feature right here. It's current time. All this is it starts counting straight up from whatever time of day it is, and it's going to count with the seconds to let you know how long it is. And a nice thing about it is it uses NTP servers to make sure that the time stays accurate. So it's going to stay in time and continue counting up until you tell it to stop. Another great feature, and one of my personal favorites on the clock, is this count to time right here. It's below current time. What this does is calculate the amount of time to a certain time of day, and it's going to automatically count and roll down to that time. So to give you an example, if I want to know how long, if my service starts at 12:30, I want to know how long until 12:30, I simply type 12:30, and I can hit count to time, and it did the math for me, started immediately counting down to get to 12:30. I don't have to do any math to do that. It did it for me, and again, it uses the NTP servers to keep that time. Also, if you wanted just to count to 5 o'clock p.m., I just hit 5, which normally if I hit set would be 5 seconds, but if I hit 5 and do a count to time, it now actually is counting to 5 o'clock p.m. And it did that for me, and you have a nice little clock letting you know that that's what it's doing, and that it is, like I said, syncing with those NTP servers. One more feature to know, very simple one, is just the reset button. That simply is going to take you back to 0 and stop everything. If you ever had a reason to do that or had to clear out everything, that works for us great here sometimes. One other feature on the clock that is, again, a really great quick feature to know about is our adjustments down here at the bottom. The input field for the adjustments works the exact same way as the timer input field. It functions the same way, so if I can set a 10, and now I can set 10 seconds. So what I'm going to show you for an example is I have 1 minute set on my main clock. I'm going to go ahead and start it. So I'm counting down 1 minute, and what these features do is it quickly just adds or removes time that I input. So I have 10 seconds in there, and as it's running, I can quickly minus 10 seconds. I can add minus any time, whether it's stopped or started. So those are the great features to know about the timer, and I would suggest just playing with it and getting familiar with them. The next thing I'm going to show you is the overlay controls. This is where I was saying you can add quick text or even colors that you need to put on your clock output. Like I said, there's 5 different positions. I'm going to show you what those are in just a minute. It works very similar to any kind of text or word-based program. So I have an actual current overlay, which you see on right here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hide my overlay, so I'm going to show you a couple features. You can type anything you want in here. We have video time. I can go ahead and type, I'm going to go ahead and just type video because I didn't want time to be in there. I can make it all sorts of different things. It's very editable. So I can change my background. I can make it nice and black if I want, and I can change my text and make it any color I want as well. I can change to bold. I have italicize and underline options, as well as sizing options, so I can make it as small or big as I'd like to make it. So like I said, it works like those. You can get really customized, get them really set however you want, whatever works best for your team on that. The text input field, like I said, is very similar to anything like that, so you can quickly highlight it and customize as you need. When you're ready to show it, it's very similar to the clock. It just simply has the show overlay button. All I'm going to do is quickly show that for you guys, and I have a hide option as well, so I can just show and hide. One of the great things about this feature is you can update it, so I can go to a blue color if I'd like, and it didn't change on the clock until I hit update, which is a great thing. So you can go ahead and have the next thing ready to go. You can even create a new one while you already have one showing. The next thing to show you guys is those positions, like I was saying. The update feature works the same for those positions. You have them right here. You have 5 different positions. Currently we are top right, which means it's just taking over this top right part of the clock. We have a top left, which is a similar option of the exact opposite side. We have top full, which takes over the entire part. It gets rid of your information and your aux. It's underneath it. They can continue rolling underneath it, but this just goes literally over the top of it. We also have bottom full, which takes over the entire bottom part of the clock, and then full cover, which is for some reason if you didn't need a clock but you needed a quick prompter, this works great for that as well. It takes over the entire clock. They can, like I said, continue functioning underneath it if needed, but currently, there you go. So currently that can continue rolling, and I can just set those wherever I want. When I have something set and I have an overlay I'd like to continue using often, or an overlay that you know it's something you're going to need the next week or the next event, we have the option to store those. You have the option to do a couple of things here. I'm going to show you through those real fast. Currently I have no presets stored in my presets list, but if I'm ready to store this video one right here, I think it's in the position I want, it's the colors I want, I can just quickly hit store. I can give it a name if I want, and then when I'm ready, it's right there again. So you can store as many really as you want. There's the option of going through those, and I have that video one set. So now what I want to do maybe is I want to go and change my background color to red, and I want to change my text color to black. I can now store a new one, and I can call it instead red if I'd like, and now I have the option of both of those. But if for some reason I didn't like the blue one, I can go and quickly hit video and just remove it. So now all I have left is that red one. I can pull it up, and then when I'm ready to show it, I just update. So you can go through those different options of storing. When you have everything you're ready to have created, you do have a great option of exporting locally. So if you have a bunch of presets that's something you use regularly, you can export them locally to your computer, and then each time you open it, if they're not in there, you can import them back in from your computer. Another feature we do give you all is templates. That is something that is just the templates that come standard in there. If you'd like to modify those or use any of those, there's a bunch of them in there for you. You can go through, change what you want, resave them out. Or you can simply, you're done with all of your text, you can hit remove all. And now it's going to ask me if I want to remove them. I say yes, and I have none saved anymore. But again, it doesn't affect what you currently have on. One last thing to show you on this is there's also the quick option to create a new one completely from scratch. It's this button right here. It's going to ask me if I want to get rid of this one, which I don't have stored, but that's okay. So it just starts from scratch, starts with white text, black background, and I can start full, completely new because I've removed them, and I have a new one ready to go. To go ahead and show you the next section is I have the status information. For now I'm going to hide the overlay so you can see it. Right here, this information section, we have a couple of features so you can set it up as you need for your service. This is where you put really the name or title of your service. Currently we have it as information, but that is something you can change if you want. So if you don't want it to be information, you would like it instead to be version. That's what you'd like to call it. You can hit update and it will do it for you. You can change it to whatever you would like to do for your service title. We do have options for your script name as well. You can use the phonetic alphabet that we use here, which is just kind of the standard military alphabet. Or if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you have an option to go blank, and it would just be black at that point. Nothing is listed. Or you even have the option of custom. So if your version and you'd like to be version 2, for example, you can change it and now you're version 2. One thing you're wondering probably is what this timing feature here is at the bottom. It's just a little checkbox. When the T is actually checked, it's going to add a little -T to the end of your script name. And what that indicates for us here means that between our script updates, the only change was just a timing update. Nothing else changed on our script. So that's something we have available here. And one last thing to show you is the subtitle option. This would actually insert a custom text below your script name. So if you have something you want to put, but your version 2 right now, but you want to be your part 1 of version 2, you can show that. The text input field is very simple, same as up here. You would just hit show, and it's going to show right below the script name. And it's the same option. You have show and you have hide. And when you are showing it, you also have the option to update. So if you go to part 2 and you've moved on, you can quickly update it as you go. So those are great features just to keep track of what script we're on here. That's something we go through all the time just to make sure we're constantly on the same page, and that's very helpful for that. One last thing to show you on the clock is not really a section I talked about earlier, is actually this clock view mode up here at the top left. This clock view mode has 3 different views of the clock as you like to use. This default is actually the version we've been showing you. This is how we've been showing you. It has all of the options available on the clock. You also have a simple one, which I'm going to show you now. It only has the main timer and status information. It doesn't obviously have an aux clock, and it does not have overlay controls. And then the last one we have is time of day. It just displays the current date and the current time. This is something we leave in the clock in this mode all the time when we're not using it. It's just so it's a great reminder and a great clock anywhere you have it pulled up as needed. And one thing to show you about this is obviously you can't use any of these features right now, but each of these sections you can hit clear while you're in this mode. You can get it set up for your next service, and so it's set to 2 minutes, so the next time I go back to the default mode I would already have my clock set. So if that's something you want to do, is have it set and ready to go, but you want to keep it in this view for now, you can do that as well. Okay, I'm going to set it back to the default view. This is the same view we already had, so now it's set and 2 minutes is ready to go. I could have done that with each of those sections as well. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to quit out the program, and I'm going to invite Matt back up.
Awesome. Thank you, Brittany. Everybody give it up for Brittany. Woo! Thousands of people applaud. That was awesome, Brittany. Again, there's a lot to LiveTime, and we're going to be covering some training stuff towards the end of the application, where we actually break down, we have training videos that break down each individual component that she showed you. So if you want to kind of refresh how the timers work, there's a video for that, or if you want to refresh how the overlay or the status information section. So all those are broken up into their own sections. Okay, so now we're going to dive into LiveTime 201. So if 101 wasn't too bad, 201 is not going to be that bad either. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're going to talk about watching and controlling. What do you mean by that? Well, what the heck is watching and controlling? Well, when you download the base application and you launch the app, you can set it to watch an existing LiveTime clock server. So for instance, here's a laptop that's maybe backstage or somewhere else. They've got a program up on the left, and they've got they're watching our clock server on the right. That's an example of watching. An example of controlling is, here's a guy, looks like Daniel Craig, is controlling the clock server. There's the control panel open up on a computer there at front of house. So that's kind of nice. You can do that. So that's kind of watching and controlling. But now let's actually walk into a demo, and I'm going to show you really what this means straight up. So I'm going to go ahead now and launch LiveTime. So LiveTime is launched here, and right now you can see 2 buttons. So it's really, they do essentially, they connect the same way, but they just open a window differently. So this one says connect to a clock and open an output, and the other one says connect to a clock and open the control panel. So they both connect to a clock. So let's explain what that means. So if I press watch a clock, a window's going to pop up right here that displays some clock servers that are available. So the first one we see is called demo time. It shows an actual host name. And if it doesn't have a host name, it'll show an IP address. So here's one called New York that has an IP address. So these nearby clocks will discover any local clock servers on your current network and subnet. If you want, you can manually enter the IP address. So for instance, I could enter 10.1.145.68 and it would add that New York server there as well. You can also enter a host name, or you can even remove the item from the default loaded clocks. We also have the ability to load a list. This list is based on an XML file that we have documented on our support website. You can, for instance, let's say this one here is livetimeapp.com/demo. If I press load, it's going to load in a list of a couple clocks that are on a XML file. And you can host this XML file on your own web server, or you can send it to us. And if you're nice and ask nicely, we will host it on ours for you underneath your own church name. But here you can see there's a couple servers that are loaded. The demo LiveTime, which we'll talk about later, and a couple other locations that are grayed out because they're actually off right now. But that's how you can utilize this the load list section or even the IP address. One thing about the list is on the iPhone and the iOS viewer application, you only have the ability to discover local clocks on Wi-Fi. You don't have a way to enter IP address, but you can enter a list to actually load in a default list into your iOS device. So it's very, very handy. So let's go ahead and connect first to demo time. I'm going to select demo time and connect. And now my display shows demo time. Now, you can notice one thing too here is that there's a nice little green border outlining this window. This little green border, it may be hard to see on the video, but it's there. It's only a couple pixels. Shows you that you're actually connected. So when it's actually connected, it will show in green. If you were to get disconnected somehow, the clock would keep running, but the border would become red to let you know that you're disconnected. So this is the LiveTime clock window. We can also close that. We can open up our welcome window again. And now as I hover over, it'll actually show us that we're connected to demo time. Let's go ahead and disconnect. So now I'm disconnected from demo time. Now let's use the other button. It's going to do kind of what we saw before. It's going to open the control panel though and open up the connect yourself to server panel. Let's go ahead and connect to demo time again. So now I'm connected to demo time and you see everything that you've kind of seen before. We've got the timers, we've got an overlay, but you may notice that the actual interface is kind of grayed out. That's because we're just looking at the control panel. We're just actually seeing what's going on. We're not actually controlling it. But what if I actually want to control something? And as you saw there, a timer just showed and hide. Someone's actually controlling this demo time computer right now. It's pretty really cool. So what if I actually want to control what's happening here? So I can just press control modes and then take control. The panel will become available and all my controls will be available to change what's happening on the demo time server. So I can hide and show. I can get rid of this overlay. I can move it to the bottom and show that if I want, or I can hide it, or I can put it back where it belonged. So everything that I'm doing here is actually changing on the demo time server. And when I'm done controlling, I can either uncheck take control, or I can just press release control and the panel will go back to its normal grayed out state so I don't accidentally hit any buttons. This is very useful if you have a couple different people running the control panel or running LiveTime with the control panel open. And you don't want to actually have them controlling. They can just have it open like this, but not actually controlling to prevent any accidental button clicks. So again, I can just press control modes, take control, and now I'm actually controlling what's happening on the server, as you can see there. So that is how you control. And if you want to disconnect, you can actually disconnect straight from the control panel there like I am now. Now I'm completely disconnected. I'm not connected to any actual clock. And then I can connect to, again, an existing server that may be in place. So we're going to go ahead now and go back to the keynote. And we're going to talk about a section of the interface called the Clock Connection Details panel. And I'm going to show you more about this and even more in 401. But let's go ahead and invite up to the controls Luke DeMoss. And Luke is going to give us an overview of the Clock Connection Details section of the application. Luke?
All right, clock connection details. Just to give a little bit of context on the control panel where Matt just was, it is in the bottom center of the control panel and can do quite a few different things and tell you lots of different pieces of information. First of all, you can take a look here and see the status for either your server, if you have your server turned on, or the server you are connected to. If you're ever curious which you're seeing in this panel, just take a look at the bottom. Right now it says showing connected server info, so it's telling me about the Grapevine Time server, as I can see at the top, that I am watching and or controlling. That will change to showing my server info if you have your server turned on. Another thing you can do in this panel is if you want to remove someone from either watching or controlling, you can do that right here. All you have to do is unlock the panel with the little lock icon in the top left-hand corner. Say I want to get rid of this GVM meeting 1. They're not supposed to be watching this clock. Just hit the dash next to their name and they're gone. Pretty simple. Another thing you can do in this panel is you can rename your server clock name. So right now we see it's grapevine time up there. If I click on that, I can type in whatever I want. Let's say we want this to be called master time now. And there you go. Now we're renamed. One other thing we can do, we'll just touch on real quick. Matt will cover it in more detail here in just a minute. But you see this tell to watch button at the top? That is going to tell master time to watch another clock server. So I have another clock server called global time, and I want master time to watch global time. So I hit the button and select global time, and now it tells me that master time is watching global time. If I want to disconnect that relationship, I just hit go local, and now we are back to master time just being on its own.
Thank you, Luke. Luke is awesome. So that's how the clock connection detail panels just kind of actually looks like. We'll walk through some functionality on that here in just a second. So LiveTime 401. This is kind of the last main section of the webinar here today. But servers and servers, oh my, what are we talking about? Well, again, let's say you have a broadcast location. For us here in Dallas-Fort Worth, we've got a location with our own audience. But let's say you have campuses or broadcast locations all around the United States or even the world, and each of them have their own audience, and you have your own server turned on because they have their own independent output, as we talked about earlier. But let's say they want to still see and be synced up with the main time coming from the main broadcast location. Well, how do we accomplish that? Well, we've created an entirely new structure that when a server tries to connect to another server, it kind of changes some things by design in the application and how it functions. So when you are a server watching another server or controlling a server that is watching another server, a whole new mode called override takes into play. Now let's actually show you a graph to show you what we mean by this. So here you've got a iMac that's running the server, and you've got a couple iOS devices that are looking at that server to see what's happening there. You've got maybe a Mac laptop controlling it or watching it either way. And then now we're going to add on to another server. So this is an iMac at a different location that's actually connected to, again, the master time. And it has its own set of people who are watching and controlling it. So there you go. You've got now an iMac and another Mac, a couple other iOS devices that are connected to the second iMac there. Now let's say you want to add, let's say you turn on these override functions. Here's what happens. So we're going to add another campus in that turns on the override ability. You can see if you look at the overlay where it says global text and local override, when you turn on an override function, you can actually make your server change or just not take particular commands from the master server that you're watching. So in this example here, the iMac that's with the blue arrows has overridden the actual overlay controls, which allows you to show your own set of overlays, but yet still get all the other times from the master server. I'm actually going to walk you through now what that means with a little demo. So back to the LiveTime application, I'm going to go ahead and connect now to our demo time server. Now, when I'm connected to the server, you can see that only myself and some other random computer is actually watching this demo time server. And if I press control modes, take control, you'll notice now that I'm a controller for this. And if I were to actually remove myself from the controller list, you'll see my panel go back to normal. So that's kind of what Luke was talking about with being able to manage this control list. Now, let's say I'm at demo time and I'm in some random location, but I want to actually connect to the New York time computer server. I'm going to open up a screen share of what the New York computer is showing us. As you can see here with the New York name on top. I'm going to move this over here because I have limited real estate. And I'm going to tell demo time to watch the New York time. So when I press that tell to watch button here, the whole panel now switches to a different mode. It says select a clock server for demo time to watch. What this means is you're going to reroute the demo time computer you're connected to watch New York time. And you can see New York is available. It's in green. Demo time, which is the one we're connected to now, is in red because you can't tell it to connect to itself. That would create a loop, so we don't want that. So I can press New York time and then connect. However, let's say I wanted it to be offsetted by 10 seconds. So meaning I am 10 seconds behind everything that the New York time is doing, I could actually input an offset time here as well. So let's say you had a campus or you had a location that just needed to be exactly 2 minutes behind, you could input an offset time there as well. I don't need an offset for what we're doing today, so I'm going to click on New York and connect. And immediately my panel will now show everything that the New York time computer is doing. So if the New York time computer decides to hide and show some timers, or even change the overlay to say something else to be pink, that's interesting. We're seeing everything that's happening. But let's say, I don't want to see this overlay. I don't like the pink color for my campus here. We can change that. Now let's walk through this status thing here at the top. This little green text at the top is what we call our status section of the control panel. It simply says, I'm connected to demo time, and demo time is connected to New York. And what that does, it shows us that we have the relationship of a server watching and connected to another server. So if I press now control modes, entirely new set of the user interface appears that we didn't have before. And it is the override section. So if I press override the overlays, now watch this. I can change it back to blue, and I can just call this go time. And I would probably say the background would probably be green if it was go time. So go time, and we're going to make this text be black and bold, and time should be underlined. And then I can update. And now anybody that's connected to demo time, like myself, sees our own independent overlay, and any changes that New York makes on their overlay, for instance, they just went orange, we don't get those changes because we're overriding that particular section. This is extremely handy when you want to override a timer. So you can see that the aux timer is counting from New York. I can override that, and let's say I wanted to show the current time of day, and now I'm showing the current time of day no matter what the New York timer is doing. But yet, the main time from New York, I'm still seeing, so as the main timer from New York shows and hides, we still get those commands. Now let's say I'm done with that, I can just uncheck the override and it will go right back to where New York is. Or if I'm completely done, I can just press release control and the panel will go back to where it was. And that is how the override functions work. Now let's go back to the keynote just for a few minutes as we walk through that. So by design, what we're talking about here is by design, a server cannot control another server. So only turn on the server when you need a specific output to be broadcasted. So for instance, if you have two different campuses in your church, you'd probably have two different servers on. But if you're just, for instance, the Grammy Awards, and you need a bunch of people to connect and see what the time is of your program, you'd only have one server turned on. Again, a server itself cannot control another server, but it can override what it gets from a different server. Let's talk about that relationship just one more time in a different way of showing it. So we got a graph. We've got a Mac laptop that server is off. So it's the base application that you download from the website. And then on another iMac, you have someone that downloaded the application and then turned on the server with the in-app purchase. So you can see here it's fully controlling that server. But now we've got another example where there's a Mac laptop with its server on connected to an iMac with its server on. You notice that the arrows change to blue, and that indicates it's in override mode. So anything that server does, you can't control the main server. You can only override what's happening on it. And then the extended example shows exactly what we were just in, to where I was on a computer connected to demo time with its server on, who was then connected to another server. So that kind of shows how the overriding takes place. Again, there's a lot of information here about LiveTime. So we developed a training website on livetime.com/training that actually walks through all these features in more detail. And we welcome you guys to take a look at that. If you really want to give it a try, or if you like what you see, you can go to the Mac App Store and download LiveTime. The base application is $4.99. And you can turn on the server function. Again, you'd only do that at specific campuses where you need an output. But if you just want to play with our demo server, you can go to demo.livetimeapp.com. It's actually a demo server you can type in from anywhere. It's available externally. And you can play with the demo server before you turn on your own server if you'd like to, just to kind of see how the app functions. So that's kind of how, generally, how LiveTime works. We want to say thank you for joining us on this first part of the webinar. We're going to be making this video available to everybody that's here today. And we also will probably be repeating this webinar here again shortly. You can follow us on our social media means, or you can email us at support@livetimeapp.com. So we're available there. And again, thanks guys on behalf of Luke DeMoss and Brittany Wilcox, myself, Matt Timmons. We appreciate you guys being on here today, and hope you guys like what you've seen. If you want to again see the whole video, we'll be sending this out to all of you soon. And you guys have a great day. This is all of us here from Grapevine, Texas, signing off.